Decentralized News, our weekly coverage of the major headlines in Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. I'm your host, Piter, joined as always by Aussie. This week's episode, we're going to talk about the spot Bitcoin ETF, get an update on everything going on there. We had Naive Bukele out of El Salvador reelected, Bitcoin bull over there. A couple of positive ETH news stories. We'll jump into those. Jerome Powell did a very interesting interview on 60 Minutes. The Apple Vision Pro came out. There's been a lot of interesting video around that, but we're going to talk about how it affects the cryptoverse and maybe the metaverse narrative. Then we got a slew of news and notes out of the cryptoverse just in general, DeFi and altcoins. But yeah, ton to get to. Let's just do your own research. This is not financial advice. We are here for your entertainment and education only. But let's jump in. You want to lead us off with the first story here?
Yeah, let's hop into this. The ETFs have been a big narrative for months now, and we're going to dive into what's happening since they've come out. The one big thing that's happened this week is that BlackRockSpot Bitcoin ETF has officially overtaken Grayscale in overall daily volume. This is, as you can see on the chart, pretty interesting. If you look at volume, most of the time it's been Grayscale. Grayscale is generally the leader out there, but that's mainly been outflows, whereas we're seeing kind of steady activity from BlackRock, and BlackRock's volume finally has taken over Grayscale. That being said, we've also been seeing an overall decline in volumes. Had the first day below 1 billion in total volume for the entire group. So that was something to watch, and that happened on February 1st. So we'll see where volume finds its natural kind of stable point in terms of total trading volume. And then looking at kind of the overall market share, we'll see that GBTC, which is Grayscale's product, has seen a slow and steady decline from just over 50, kind of 55%, down to somewhere around 40 or 45%. Whereas we've seen the BlackRock and IBIT ETF slowly gain in share, probably from about 25% to 30 or so percent, and a few other ETFs already having early leaders, if you look at it, with 6 of them really not having dominant shares at all at this point. It seems right now that profit taking out of GBTC is slowing. You can see the curve was pretty steep at one point, but it's starting to steady out. But we're not sure if that's going to last. Looking at the FTX news, we saw FTX is done selling based on analysts at Coinbase. And so that's super good. They had about 22 million shares of GBTC. So that is now done being sold. So at least there's some reprieve. And with all of these sales, FTX is now able to refund all of their customers the US dollar value of their crypto at the time of the FTX closure. For some people, this is unfortunate. If you held Bitcoin, you're only getting the value of that Bitcoin at 18K or below 18K. You're not getting that Bitcoin as it would be valued now, or that amount of Bitcoin. It's just whatever it was, what the US dollar price of it was back in 2021, below 18K.
Yeah, it's super disappointing, especially for people who are planning to hold, because like the meme in the beginning, that was taking profit, buying the Bitcoin. They would have been holding it this whole time, and they were forced to sell at the bottom. It's disappointing. Yeah,
it's definitely disappointing, but compared to other bankruptcies that we've seen happen, like Mount Gox has been going on since 2014. Or 2018, not 2014. Mount Gox has been ongoing for years, and people still haven't gotten their Bitcoin back. FTX has been settled in a year and a bit, and so that's a surprisingly closer turnaround. And if we look at it compared to Voyager and Celsius, people are actually being made whole in US dollar sense, at least, compared to these other ones where you were maybe, like, I think Celsius, people were getting 20% of their US dollar value back in cash. So this is a much better refund or situation than what we've seen comparatively in other bankruptcies in crypto so far.
Yeah, and just looking at these two charts, excited to see what happens with this volume as we head into the halving, the Fed changing rates this year, this new analytic to look at in terms of judging how well Bitcoin is doing and the crypto markets are doing. This could be a fun one to look at as far as watching this potentially grow. The volume has been decreasing, post launch. As the dust settles, everyone making their moves, but watching this moving forward will be exciting. And it looks like there was also some other news as far as all the sell pressure and all this GBTC selling. We may not be completely out of the woods yet. Crypto exchange Gemini Trust said on Saturday that the crypto lender has filed a motion in the U.S. bankruptcy court. So they're going through a bankruptcy. Speaking of all these bankruptcies going on, they have 31 million, right around 31 million shares of Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and that's at $38 a share today. So we're talking about roughly $1.1 billion or 25,000 Bitcoin. And just to put this number into context, BlackRock and Fidelity, that's about a day's worth of overall volume for this ETF market. That's buying and selling at where it is right now. And BlackRock and Fidelity each now hold about 134,000. The market could probably take it, but still some sell pressure out there.
Yeah, like you're looking at one or two pretty red days as the market feels a lot of that outflow and that selling. And it's not massive sell pressure. It kind of matches FTX, but it's definitely still going to be felt overall in the market for sure. It's not something we can escape at the very least.
So another story out of kind of this ETF news, South Korea regulator plans to meet SEC Chair Gary Gensler. So the head of South Korea financial regulator put forth a timeline that he's planning to meet. He put it out in February. We don't know exactly when they're going to meet. But South Korea, which is crypto-friendly market, I think we'd say, they've taken a very cautious approach to Bitcoin ETFs. In January, the Financial Service Commissions reiterated that it would not adjust its stance on the rules from launching crypto ETFs, even with the landmark approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs in the United States. And it also, you cannot, because of a law they have, the Capital Markets Act, you cannot buy US-based crypto spot ETFs. This may be changing with this meeting. Not really a timeline, but bullish news maybe for the long term for South Korea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. South Korea, there's a lot of developers out of South Korea. They are more conservative in their overall financial markets like Japan. So this doesn't surprise me, but it'll be interesting to see if Gary Gensler gets South Korea on board or if he sabotages ETFs for South Koreans, just like he almost did for U.S. citizens.
He's not endorsing it. He just had to do it.
Exactly.
So maybe it has to more do with the technicalities and the laws as opposed to whether they support it or not.
We do have one Bitcoin bull who has remained on the political stage. Naive Bukele won re-election in El Salvador with a second term now as El Salvadorian president. So that's pretty big, with 85% of the votes having been counted and 58 of the 60 deputies in the assembly. He is now in office until 2029. So through almost 2 full more bull cycles. That's pretty big.
That's awesome.
They adopted Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador in 2021, and they plan to maintain it upon re-election. They've been purchasing Bitcoin and accumulating a portfolio but worth about $1 million, and it is now at about $3.6 million in profit as of early December last year. So they're sitting on some nice profits in Bitcoin right now.
I was actually surprised at the $131 million portfolio they have in Bitcoin. I was surprised at how small that sounded to me for whatever reason. Just like how early they got involved and how big a part of the community they really are. It just surprised me. I thought it would be a bigger number than that.
Yeah, it's a small number, but they are a small country. This is it's still a huge win for them. They're up over 3.5x, which is great. They've also introduced their Freedom Visa program, which allows residency or citizenship to up to 1,000 applicants per year for a $1 million investment in Bitcoin or USDT. And their country is also planning to issue their long-awaited Bitcoin-backed volcano bonds, which are aiming to raise $1 billion via Bitcoin-backed bonds, which is going to seed a Bitcoin mining industry using renewable energy from the country's active volcanoes. So, pretty cool.
Definitely. Congratulations. He's definitely very popular in the cryptoverse. So happy to see him reelected. I hope he survives all the FUD that's going to be coming his way. But yeah, excited for the development and excited he's there till 2029. Let's see what El Salvador can do. Viva El Salvador. If you're enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe. We really appreciate everybody out there who supports us. Kind of jumping from Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ETF news and the El Salvador news into Ethereum, they have a couple of headlines this week. The Deacon hard fork set to happen next Thursday, according to a report from Crypto Briefing. Ethereum's Deacon upgrade is set to hit Ethereum's mainnet on Thursday, February 8th. This was from a Reddit post by Tim Baiko, Ethereum Foundation representative. The deployment will follow the Holsky testnet's final upgrade on February 7th. The upgrade was initially tested on the Goerli and Sepola testnets last month. Although Goerli encountered some difficulties, Sepola testnet's results were overall good. So one of the anticipated features is the proto dank sharding, designed to enhance Ethereum's scalability and slash transaction costs. Will it happen? Please do slash the transaction costs, benefiting layer 2 protocols. Following the Deacon upgrade, Ethereum's developers will focus on the next set of upgrades, including Prague, I'm not sure what
Prague,
and the integration of Verkle trees. There is some controversy within the developer community, particularly with the Verkle trees due to the technical complexity, which could extend the development for over 18 months. But that's what's on stage for the next upgrade. So exciting news for Ethereum.
Yeah, the fact that we're going to see the Deacon hard fork come in a week from now, that's pretty major, just in terms of exactly what we talked about, benefiting L2 protocols. As we start seeing that L2 explosion, the Deacon upgrade is going to be, I think, one of the biggest enablers of that for crypto and for L2s. Having this upgrade out before the 2025 bull run, I think will be massive for L2s.
That is not it for Ethereum. They also had what I thought was a pretty big announcement, but I don't know if you noticed, the ENS token spiked pretty hard this morning. They had a partnership with GoDaddy. So in a major announcement, the world's largest web registrar, GoDaddy, has partnered with Ethereum Name Service, ENS. Specifically, the collaboration will allow users to connect their domain names with ENS names. The partnership is set to deliver seamless integration with hundreds of applications across the Web3 ecosystem. Moreover, the announcement highlighted the simplicity of the new section added by GoDaddy, specifically allowing its customers to integrate their Ethereum address with their domains. The configuration will then allow the domain name to be used in place of the ENS name, subsequently opening up a range of Web3 applications, including wallets, block explorers, NFT marketplaces, and
yeah, it's pretty big.
It may just be a pump and slide back down for ENS, but more, what will this mean? It's almost hard to imagine exactly, but it's nice to see some of this Web 2 and Web 3 integration was really lulled during the bear market. There wasn't a lot of partnership announcements like this, so I think this is a sign of the bull market coming back. That's personally what I see here.
Yeah, and thinking about ENS and how Vitalik had just talked about how big it's going to be for Web3 and the Ethereum vision, to see it integrated with GoDaddy, it's pretty massive, and I think will have a huge impact in terms of just the wide scope of integrations that we're going to see with Web3 and Web2 kind of identities. I think that's pretty cool. I also think it would be pretty cool if you guys drop a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it. Drop a comment. Let us know how you feel about ENS and whether you like the kind of more proof of humanity that we're seeing coming from ENS and these domain connections. That being said, let's hop into some macro. You were telling me you were pretty excited about this Jerome Powell interview. You want to break it down.
I thought it was a pretty interesting interview. I didn't see the whole thing, but I read most of the transcripts, saw big chunks of it. But one of the interesting quotes was he was questioned a couple of times about the ballooning national debt, which is like at 30 trillion. It's going to go up to like 134 trillion. And he basically admitted in the long run, the U.S. this is a quote from Jerome Powell, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government, and that just means that is growing faster than the economy. So it is unsustainable. Effectively, we are borrowing from future generations. And when I hear that, especially that line, it's like, how do I save for the future? How do I save for my children? And that's one of the reasons I'm so actively involved with Bitcoin. So to me, it's an endorsement of Bitcoin, but I have a bias kind of framework.
Everyone's got to have a bias. If you're involved in crypto, you've got to at least partially think that it's going to outperform the stock market and outperform cash. So you're doing a service to your
and I've always looked at it as like a potential, as opposed to like a payment layer, is more of a store of value, and that's what always attracted me. Whenever it's my personal kind of investment journey, I've always been attracted towards store of value type of investments. My first investment was into gold. So things like gold and property or whatever, the most attractive to me. Property is a very difficult thing to get into, but Bitcoin has a lot of those qualities, and many would argue are better than all of those. And you can get into it with any amount. So yeah, it's always been one of the strong use cases for me, or the strong arguments for why I've invested in it. Another kind of interesting quotes that came out was everyone looking for when are they going to pivot? When are they going to cut rates? There was a lot of expectations that this next meeting was when we're going to see the rate cuts, but the data coming out has been a little not too rough. So he basically said, without saying, there's always a little bit of wiggle room he gives himself, but there would have to be major changes for there to be a cut at this next meeting. So he effectively said there's not going to be a cut, but always giving himself an out. But he also mentioned that there would it's always probably 3 cuts this year. So I thought that was pretty revealing that he was pretty forthcoming about there not going to be a cut at this next one, and that the current expectations are about 3 cuts this year. So I thought that was pretty.
Yeah, this data in terms of 3 cuts and no cut at the next meeting came from the FOMC meeting on the 30th and the 31st. So this is interesting to see that he's reiterating that message. The big change that also is worth noting is everyone in the market was anticipating 4 cuts. So the fact that they're being a little bit more conservative and only anticipating 3 does show a strong position, or at least the more cautious position that the Fed is taking compared to the rest of the market. They've still got a bunch of data between now and next meeting. Looking at this week, or last week, we did have job numbers come out that seemed mostly positive. I found I wasn't as positive on them as other people. I felt they're average. It was a little bit more flat, but I do know that there was a bunch of analysts that felt more positively about the job numbers than I did. On top of that, we've got CPI seasonal revisions. So every time there's a major change in season, the CPI gets rebalanced a little bit. And so we're going to see those seasonal revisions come in. And we're also expecting the following Tuesday CPI, and then the following Friday PPI numbers.
I think with the job numbers, people are just looking for this, something has broken and something is breaking, and there wasn't like real clear evidence of that. So maybe the more positive tone, even though the numbers weren't spectacular or anything like that. But looking ahead at the FedWatch tool, at the next meeting, which is 43 days on 3/20, 43 days away, maybe 42 if you're watching this on Tuesday. 85% chance no change, 15% still for a cut. Definitely terminal rate seems to have been reached. 85% we're going to stay. So most likely we're going to stay, especially based on Jerome Powell's comments, barring any big changes in these numbers, CPI, PPI coming out, 50% no cut. May 1st, the next meeting was about 60-40. So 60% are expecting a cut, 40% still no cut. So still a decent percentage, still no cut. But by June, we're at 95% with either 1 cut or multiple cuts, and with 5% no cut. So the current sentiment is by June, we should see some movement if we're going to have 3 cuts before the end of the year.
Yeah. I think if I got to double check, but thinking towards the number of meetings that you've got left, you don't really want to be cutting in back-to-back meetings. They're not it's highly unlikely that they'll want to cut in back-to-back meetings. So if we were to look at this, if they were to cut in June, then they'd cut in September, and then they'd cut in December. So it would put them in a perfect one cut, a break, a meeting break, one cut, meeting break, one cut. And that would put about more or less 3 months between each cut. That to me seems like a reasonable timeline if we're looking at 3 cuts for the year.
All right, let's shift over into kind of the altcoin DeFi universe a little bit, unless you got anything else to add on the macro economy. I guess the only other thing worth noting with macro is China's been in a lot of trouble. Their stock market is getting schlackled. And the thing that interests me about that is that they may be forced into action and kind of flooding the markets with liquidity. That's what I see. It's complicated to get any information about China, but their stock market has been taking it on the chin lately, and which may force China just into action. Do you think we could see some movements from them that just inject liquidity into the global marketplace?
I don't know specific movements from them, but potentially movements from, I'd say, players in Hong Kong, players closely associated with China that might have easier access to crypto. We could see that as people try and hedge themselves and protect themselves against the collapsing stock market there. If you think about India, although India has a pretty strong anti-crypto stance, maybe Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, you might see some shifting in those regions towards a little bit more of a Bitcoin focus as the stock market just isn't performing like is needed in China.
When we have market collapse in the United States, that's when they print. That's when the money printers come on. That's when they start buying assets. So I just wonder if it's the same story out of China.
I feel like it's a little bit more conservative there, especially considering how widespread it is. They probably need some time to before we maybe see the money printers come on.
All right, well, if you're enjoying the content, again, like and subscribe. We're going to get into kind of some of the altcoin and DeFi news. One of the other big stories this week was the Apple Vision Pro hit the stores. Hopefully we put up this incredibly funny meme. I love this one. I really, maybe in the notes, we got to give credit if I can find out who made this. But it definitely made me think about how does this affect, the cryptoverse and what it means maybe for the metaverse narrative. This has really disappeared during the bear market, but maybe we'll see more of a resurgence than people are expecting. The thoughts that come to mind are a project like Pavia or Cornucopia. They're still going, they're still building, but there's just no narrative around the metaverse right now. There's a lot of excitement about games, but not necessarily about the metaverse. And this, to me, looks like something that could change that.
Yeah.
And I went looking just for a story about it, and I found this one. There's a blockchain-based Victoria VR, which is going to launch an app. So Crypto Meets virtual reality VR developer Victoria VR says it's working to release the first metaverse app from the blockchain-related company on the Apple headset Vision Pro. It's going to form an elaborate digital environment that shows off many capabilities of the Apple Vision Pro, while simultaneously showcasing the power of Web3 blockchain technology. Victoria VR's metaverse is driven by the VR token with rewards, active users, and stakers. The token is based on Ethereum. I saw a 60% surge in the last 24 hours based on this news. And it's got about $100 million market cap. So this is just like an example of a token and a project being affected by this Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah. It's interesting to see what happens with Metaverse. I'm actually been working on a script on a video essentially about what I think the Apple Vision Pro might do for crypto and for the Metaverse, whether it will reignite it. I think I've got mixed opinions on it. I don't necessarily feel like we will see that big of a resurgence in the Metaverse, but I've got reasons for that, and I think it'll be interesting to really dive in deep on the Apple Vision Pro and the Metaverse in 2024, 2025.
There was also an interesting comment in, me and you are both members of a group called the Obsidian Council, which has to do with Jesse Eccles' kind of community, Discord community or whatever. It's one of the groups that we're involved in. And there was a comment in there, I don't want to say the guy's name because I didn't ask his permission, but he was talking about Metaverse as well and in relating it to Bitcoin ordinals. And one of the project you mentioned was one that was similar in that you're buying land, that kind of a thing. So and then just watching how the NFT space has evolved from the previous, from bull market to bull market, and we've gone through this bear, and how ordinals have come up in the bear market. Like in the middle of the bear market, ordinals took off, and DeFi on the Bitcoin blockchain has started to become a thing. And then the emergence of Metaverse with that as well. Yeah, it's just got my mind racing of all the possibilities.
Yeah, lots of possibilities to watch out for, and I think a lot of people feel like they're set on these narratives that have been talked about during the bear market up until now, but often the narratives that actually take on the next bull run sometimes usually happen during the halving year. Something to watch out for.
And the ones that become big kind of next year or a year from now are the ones that will have like the most potential. That's when the market will be growing. So it's like the most popular narrative at the right time. It's fun to try to catch those waves a little bit.
Absolutely. That being said, we got some news and notes for folks where we hit you with kind of 6 big stories, 7 big stories in a minute or two. First one is Picasso has just started the first instance of restaking on Solana. So you can now deposit Sol and Sol liquid staking tokens on.
Speaking of narratives and restaking, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, exactly. You can deposit in their restaking vaults. On the ETH side, EigenLayer is getting ready to open their vaults today, so you can deposit again, and it's only open for about 4 or 5 days, so keep your eye out on that. Looking towards L2s and the Ethereum Deacon upgrade narrative, Immutable has launched their ZK EVM mainnet early access, and it is one of the most popular GameFi projects in kind of all of Web3, and they're using a ZK EVM powered by Polygon. Speaking of Polygon, the next big ZK EVM upgrade for them will go live when this video goes live, and we'll make it a Type 2 ZK EVM. So super interesting to see there. Looking at built on that Mode, and their Mode point system has now gone live. Mode is a DeFi modular L2 built on the OP stack. We've got Dimension, which is a ZK rollup data availability layer. Their mainnet, their tokens are going live next week, so watch out for DYM. And then looking at a competitor, we've got Aptos. They've got a big unlock coming on February 11th with 230 million Aptos tokens being unlocked, which is about 7.3% of their circulating supply. So potentially some supply shock there. Looking at Shrap, talking about GameFi, they've had 2 playtests over the last 2 weeks, and their early access is going to open on February 8th. So keep your eye out for that.
Highly anticipated GameFi projects. This one here.
Absolutely.
This is on the subnets, so just a different angle on the Avalanche using subnets for different games, which is pretty cool to see how this works out.
Yeah. And then the Entangled token sale, which has been garnering some interest on crypto Twitter, is going live on February 13th. So that kind of sums up your news and notes. Got anything to add, Peter?
No, you hit them all, bro. Good job.
Thank you guys for watching. Remember, this content is created for entertainment and educational purposes only. This is not financial advice, and please do your own research. Don't forget to check out our other videos on the channel. Drop us a like, a comment, a subscribe, a share. Tune in every week for our episodes of Decentralized News, and catch you on our next video. See you guys next time.